The Primitive Mind Cure, The Nature and Power of Faith, or Elementary Lessons in Christian Philosophy and Transcendental Medicine, by Warren Felt Evans. Chapter 1. What are ideas, and what is idealism? As idealism, in opposition to materialism, constitutes the philosophic basis on which the psychological or phrenopathic system of cure rests, it is necessary at the outset of our inquiries to form a clear conception of what is meant by that term. Its principles are unanswerably set forth in the work of Bishop Berkeley, entitled The Principles of Human Knowledge, published in the year 1710. The doctrines taught by Berkeley were subsequently presented under modifications by a succession of German philosophers, among whom we prominently name Fichte, Schelling, Hegel, and Schopenhauer. According to Losius, idealism is the assertion that matter, and consequently the human body, is only a sensuous seeming, and that spiritual essences are the only real things in the world. This doctrine was taught by Plato, who derived it from Pythagoras and the occult philosophy of Egypt, Chaldea, and India. It is as old as the human race. From the remotest antiquity, it was taught in the Vedas and in all the Oriental philosophies. Says Krug, idealism is that system of philosophy which considers the existent or actual as a mere ideal. The definition of Brockhaus is to the same effect. Idealism, in antithesis to realism, is that philosophical system which maintains not only that the spiritual or ideal is the original, but that it is the sole actuality, so that we can concede to the objects of the senses no more than the character of a phenomenal or apparent world, educed by ideal activities. Real Encyclopedia, 11th edition, 1866. In another place, he defines idealism to be that philosophical view which regards what is thought as alone the actually existent. This is the best definition and accords perfectly with the teaching of the true idealists of all ages and countries. Thought, says the Kabbalah, is the source of all that is. It is the first sephira or emanation from God. It is the first begotten, the firstborn from the unknown. It is the I Am, the highest manifestation of God in man, and the most real thing in the universe, that from which everything springs, and to which, in its last analysis, it can be reduced. But it is necessary to inquire into the nature of ideas and their relation to external things and all the objects of the sense world. Says Thomas Taylor, in the introduction to the Parmenides of Plato, to the question what kind of things or beings ideas are, we may answer with Xenocrates, according to the relation of Proclus, that they are the exemplary causes of things which perpetually subsist according to nature. They are exemplars, or the living patterns or models of things, indeed, because the final cause, or the good, the supreme God, is superior to them, and that which is properly the efficient cause, or the demiurgic intellect, is of an inferior ordination. But they are the exemplars of things according to nature, because there are no ideas of things unnatural or artificial, and of such natural things as are perpetual, because there are no ideas of mutable particulars. Taylor's translation of Plato, page 254. This is a comprehensive statement of the nature of the Platonic ideas. According to this view, the ideal is the causal, as the ideal picture in the mind of the artist is the necessary cause of the picture on the canvas. The latter, though only a resemblance, could not exist without the former, because there can be no resemblance that is not the resemblance of something, no appearance that is not the appearance of something. The architect constructs his house in imitation of a pre-existing model or idea, and without that idea, it might be anything else, as well as a house. So the tabernacle of Moses was to be built after the pattern shown to him in the mount. So of every object of nature, and of all that endless variety of things which belongs to the world of sense, they owe their existence to antecedent ideas, which they represent on a lower plane of being. As ideas are the causes of the existence of all material entities, so they sustain a causal relation to the human body and all its states of health and disease. If I would be perfectly well in body, I must first form the true idea of myself, such as I really am in spirit, or as Paul would say, in Christ. For Plato teaches that the highest soul of man, the pneuma of the New Testament, the buddhi of the Sanskrit, is the idea or living image of God. If I come to the knowledge of this, my real and immortal self, it will act as a cause and adjust the lower animal soul and the body in harmony with it. And our earthly house of this tabernacle will be constructed after the pattern shown to us in the Mount. All creation is first in idea and is essentially a generating or begetting. Ideas are conceptions, that is, they are the union of pure intellect, which was viewed in the Hermetic philosophy as masculine, with that spiritual and feminine principle which may be designated by the general term feeling. This union is life, whenever and wherever it is effected. It is represented symbolically by the cross, and is the Kabbalistic balance, and they express one of the most comprehensive and far-reaching truths in the whole realm of thought. There is in everything, says Swedenborg, the marriage of truth and good, or the conjunction of intellect and feeling. This extends through the universe. It is said in the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, or the teaching of the Shining Ones, in Daniel, when the most holy elder, or the Ancient of Days, hidden in all occultations, willed to create, he made all things in the form of husband and wife. Idra Sutta, or Smaller Assembly, section 218. All things appear, therefore, in the form of husband and wife, were it otherwise nothing whatever could subsist. Idra Sutta, section 223. It is an immutable and eternal truth, and one that is fundamental and universal, that nothing exists or can exist except by the union of intellectual thought with its corresponding feeling, or their correlatives. And ideas are the only truly existing things, as they are denominated by Plato. They are the generation or creation of the masculine intelligence, nous, in union with the feminine wisdom, Sophia, and they are living, enduring, and divine realities. They result from the union of the intellect and feeling on the higher plane of being, and descending to the lower animal soul plane, they are perceived as what are called external objects. The union of the intellect and feeling, in order to the existence of a living entity, is a truth with which the ancient wisdom religion was familiar, but has long since been forgotten. When I think of a triangle or a circle, the thought conjoins itself with the universal principle of feeling, the mother principle, and an idea is formed or perceived in the mind. This is a living and immortal thing. Thought and feeling are correlative opposites, like the two poles of a magnet. Each implies the other, and they mutually balance each other, and there is an affinitive attraction between them, and a spontaneous tendency to a conjunction, and a state of equilibration. When I think that I am well, which is true of my real being, or form an intellectual conception of any mental or bodily condition, the thought will seek to unite itself with the principle of feeling on the intermediate plane of my mental being, and then it becomes faith, and a living inward reality, and the substance or subsistence of things hoped for, and it will tend to translate itself into a corporeal expression. We are to bear in mind that, as there is a world of phenomena or of material things which are only appearances, so there is a world of ideas which sustains a constant creative relation to the world of sense, and without which the latter could not subsist any more than there could be a shadow without a substance. This realm of ideas is the subjective and real world. It is the intelligible world of Plato and the kingdom of the heavens of which Jesus speaks. Wherever there is a material thing, there is back of it, as its soul and life and cause, an idea. All things in the natural world are but representations of things in the realm of ideas. This is the old Hermetic doctrine of correspondence which has been reproduced by Swedenborg. Says the Jewish Kabbalah, the lower world is made after the pattern of the upper, or inner world. Everything which exists in the upper world is to be found, as it were, in a copy upon earth. Still, the whole is one. Zohar 2:20a. This is a fundamental principle in our transcendental philosophy, and must be fully apprehended before we can go any further. It is the keynote of our theosophical system. Just as the soul of man, rather than the body, is the real man, so the world of ideas is the really existing world. The external cosmos is but a resemblance, a representation, an appearance of the higher world to the sensuous mind. The world of ideas is that which was called in the ancient philosophy the macrocosm, or greater world, and the material world, including the human body, which belongs to it and is an image of it, was denominated the microcosm, or lesser world. Owing to the importance of the subject in its relation to our transcendental science of medicine, or science of mental cure, and the necessity of starting right on the principle of the maxim of Pythagoras that a good beginning is halfway to the end, we pursue our inquiry still further into the nature of ideas. Ideas are the only objects of vision. In this, both Berkeley and Locke, and even Condillac, agree. But what is the idea of a thing which is the object of vision? It is the spiritual form and reality of which the so-called external object is the correspondent or appearance. Says a distinguished writer, "Let us suppose a man to look for the first time upon some work of art, as, for example, upon a clock, and having sufficiently viewed it, at length to depart. Would he not retain, when absent, an idea of what he had seen? And what is it to retain such an idea? It is to have a form internal correspondent to the external." Hermes, by James Harris, page 375. But this internal form is all that the man ever saw, and is all that we ever see in any case. The word form comes from a Greek word, orama, meaning that which is seen. The same is true of the term idea. In vision, if there is no idea in the mind, we are blind to the object, however perfect may be our organs of sight. If there be an idea of a thing in our mind, there is a vision of it proportioned in intensity to the vividness of the idea. If the internal form reaches a certain degree of clearness, it becomes what we call a sensation. The perception of the form, idea, type, pattern, exemplar, species, or whatever we are pleased to call it, of a thing, is necessary to the vision of it. It is the essential thing in every act of vision, and the external eye is not absolutely necessary to it. We see things which have all the marks of reality in dreams and in states of mental abstraction. This mental form, image, or idea expresses not merely the material shape, but the spiritual nature, essence, and reality of a thing. It is this, and this only, that the mind sees, and of which the soul is cognizant in every act or state of visual perception. It is not a mere symbol, a picture, a mental copy, a representation of the thing, but the Ding an sich, as Kant would say, the thing itself in its inmost reality, the really existing thing, to use a Platonic expression, of which the so-called material exhibition is only its manifestation on a lower and more imperfect plane of thought. The idea is the living soul of the thing. The material phenomenon is the imperfect copy. Ideas are not only the only objects of vision, but as they are the essential reality of things, they are the only objects of knowledge or true science, as was long ago taught by Plato. We remark still further that ideas are not mere abstract thoughts, but living and immortal entities. Material things are their phenomena, or appearances, the shadow and not the substance. This is directly the opposite of the popular conception and belief. Ideas are the living kernel of things. The material organization is the rough shell. When we think of anything, as of Bunker Hill Monument, the thought takes form in an idea. This is the thing itself, and more real than the granite rock. It is the only visible entity. Ideas may be deemed to be the living and fixed forms assumed by thought. All things which exist have had a previous existence in the unseen and real world of light, the world of ideas, and after their dissolution they return to that world. When you burn a rose, as the ancient magi or wise men affirmed. It is not destroyed or annihilated, but has only passed from the world of sense to the unseen and real world whence it came. This doctrine of pre-existence applies to minerals, plants, animals, and men. They have existed as ideas before they had a material manifestation. This is the doctrine of Plato and the teaching of all the philosophies of the East. It is expressed in unmistakable language in the first chapters of Genesis. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day when Jehovah God made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. Genesis 2, 4, 5. All things were created in idea and in reality before they were in the earth. Their generation or incarnation or descent into matter is to be viewed in the light of a degradation, but one that has its reward, for here they touch the bottom in the descending line of evolution, and begin to rebound on the home stretch, or upward side of the cycle, the ascending and shining way to the blessed abodes. Jesus had a glory with the Father before the world was to him, that is, before his descent into material conditions. So perhaps had we and all other men, which is one of the oldest doctrines of philosophy, and when properly understood, one of the most rational. Whatever is true of Jesus in that respect is true of man. Ideas are but poorly expressed in the deceptive and illusory world of sense. The objects of nature are not truly existing things, but are only in a state of becoming, that is, they exhibit an effort to realize the ideal plan of their being. In illustration of this, take the geometrical figures as a line, a triangle, a circle. There is not a perfect circle in the whole material universe. There can be only a resemblance of one, but there is a circle, real, perfect, and eternal, in the world of ideas, which lies above and within this world. So there is in every one of us an ideal and immortal man. This is not the dream of a disordered fancy, but a divine reality. There is in us an instinctive striving to climb up to its full realization. To find this ideal man as a fact of consciousness and reorganize it as the living image of God in us and as our real self is the aim we have in view. To release this inward and real self from the bondage of matter and free it from all material conditions and restraints is the goal toward which the path on which we now enter conducts our willing feet. Then we are glorified with the glory which we had before the world had an existence in us and for us. This is not a new doctrine, but belongs to the Platonic philosophy, and is well stated by Plotinus. May we not say that prior to this subsistence in a state of becoming, we had a subsistence as men in true being, though different men from what we now are, and possessing a deiform nature? We were likewise pure souls and intellects conjoined with universal essence, being parts of the intelligible world, not disjoined or separated from it, but pertaining to the whole of it. For neither are we now cut off from it. For even now, the man that is here wishing to be another man exceeds or approaches in thought to the man that is there, and which, finding us, for we are not external to the universe, surrounds us with himself, and conjoins himself to that man which each of us then was. Just as if one voice and one discourse existing, some one from a different place applying his ears should hear and receive what was said, and should become in energy a certain hearing, in consequence of having that which energizes present with itself. After the same manner, we become both the man which is in the intelligible or ideal world, and the man which is here. Translations from the Greek of some treatises of Plotinus by Thomas Taylor, page 41. This is only the soul or psychical man uniting itself to the inward divine pneuma or spirit. The two extreme links of the chain of our being are brought together in a circle, and man, in the discrete degrees of his existence, is made a completed unity. The ideal and immortal man, which is latent in most, becomes the actual and conscious man. This is salvation, in the Pauline and true Christian sense, but is a conception which belongs to a spiritual philosophy that had an existence in ages long anterior, to the advent of Christianity.